Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to MST.TV. This is Nishi here bringing you all another Market Watch episode. So of course, we did see a number of buyouts over the last couple of days. Some of these were interesting, but to be honest, I feel like a lot of them were really bad buyout targets chosen. A lot of them felt really random, but I guess that's just kind of what we've come to expect from the Yu-Gi-Oh market nowadays. So in today's episode, we are going to try to break down some of these buyouts and try to make some sense of them so that you guys have an idea of what to do with these cards, either if you have them or if you're looking to pick them up for yourselves. Let's get started. Okay guys, so to start things off, we're going to talk about the big one that's probably the one that makes the most sense of any card we'll talk about today, and that is number S0 Utopic Zexal. Now, a couple of days ago, we had a number of new cards announced coming out in the OCG. We can talk about what those are another time, but basically there's a new field spell, a new spell card, and then some extra deck monsters that make it so that you have super consistent access to a one-card Utopic Zexal, which is basically a turn skip for your opponent's next turn. Now, because of this, Utopic Zexal has shot up in price. The original Jump Ultra Rares were only $1 or $2 before, and now they are $20 each, and even the reprint Supers are still around $4 to $5 a piece, whereas before they were like 50 cents, under $1, pretty negligible before. Obviously, with the new support, this is looking like a potentially really scary card, and the archetype could definitely see play alongside something like the Invoked Engine. However, it almost certainly begs the question, is this card now too good for the game of Yu-Gi-Oh, or is it going to be meta relevant at all? Like, on one hand, it's kind of scary to give the meta access to a play that literally shuts off your opponent's entire turn if you just draw a single copy of a field spell card, but at the same time, it does require like a lot of slots in your extra deck and your main deck, and it might be difficult to play the game if you don't see that field spell at all. I think that when we do get the cards, which should be in Battles of Legend in just over 2 months, I believe we will have a bit of time to play around with it and see how it affects the meta, so hopefully you have your copies of this card already. If not, and you want to look into playing the new cards, I would recommend grabbing the Supers and not the Ultras, just because I feel like this is the type of card that definitely has the potential to be banned later on in the year if it really does start to take over the meta. Next up, we have Crush Card Virus. So I'm not actually a super big fan of this buyout because I feel like it was the sort of thing that's kind of artificially accelerated, but that's okay. So as much as people talk about Crush Card Virus in real life and everything, this isn't actually seeing any meta play at the moment. In fact, ever since it was errated, it has been pretty bad, to be honest. Rather, I feel like this buyout was the direct result of the Kali effect talking about it in his video, where he discusses cards that you should be picking up now before they skyrocket in price. Now, to be fair, the card was, I believe, underpriced before, because I believe that either the first ed or unlimited copies were no more than like $25 to $30 a piece. Now, however, if you're looking on TCG Player, you're looking at $45 for the Ultimate Rare Unlimited copy and $90 for the Ultimate Rare First Edition, with very low quantities of either on the market, which is pretty insane. I'm actually pretty happy about this because I have a couple of Italian Ulti First Eds in a binder somewhere. However, I feel like this card was just another one of these random buyouts of non-meta relevant cards that we've been seeing lately, but it was accelerated because it was discussed by quite a prominent Yu-Gi tuber. It is quite an old card, so it is going to be very slow to go back down in terms of price, and I'm going to recommend selling it sooner rather than later while the price is still inflated. It isn't going to go back down, I don't think, to the $25 to $30 mark that it was before, but realistically it'll be about $50 for the first edition and then around $30 or so for the unlimited. Next up, World Legacy Guard Dragon is a card that has slowly climbed up in price over the last couple of months. I believe this card did fall down to around the $8 to $10 mark, but is now at a whole $18 a piece. Now, this wasn't a random price jump out of nowhere, but rather a really gradual climb up. I think that people were surprised or caught off guard by the fact that LP wasn't hit on the most recent ban list like it was in the OCG, and with Red MD getting errated soon, I think that the deck is fairly safe to hold onto. Now, with the Rocket cards being so easy to collect from the structure deck, World Legacy Guard Dragon is kind of one of those few cards that you need to pick up by itself that's relatively hard to find. However, it is definitely worth noting that this card is due to be reprinted in the upcoming 2020 Megatins, as it is from Savage Strike, and with the way things are right now, I don't believe that choosing to pick up this card now, of all times, is a great idea. I would much rather wait for a couple of months, pick up the Megatin version after events have hopefully started back up, because the reprints will likely be coming in at under $3 to $4 a piece. So this is a little bit of a strange one and kind of came out of nowhere, but Ultimate Rare Fiendish Chains have actually almost completely disappeared off the market, though they're still relatively affordable at around $25 to $30 each. Now, Fiendish Chain has been a pretty cheap Ultimate Rare for quite some time. It was somewhat expensive when it first came out, but I feel like it just got completely outclassed with cards like Lost Wind and Infinite Impermanence being introduced into the game. I believe that the primary demand for this card is driven by past formats, because I think it was used in like Dino Rabbit format. Satellar Knights played it in Duelist Alliance format because you could bounce it back to your hand with Trevere and then reset it. And I know it was a really big card in that like Mermail, Girgia, Fire Fist format as well. Of course, the Ultimate Rare is the highest available rarity, so this one is kind of up to you guys, right? Like if you want to bling out your past format decks, then it's probably something you want, right? Like a super rare Metamorphosis or a super rare Magician of Faith. But if not, it's definitely something that either you can try to move it now, or you can hold on to it if you think that the demand for past format cards is going to drive this card's price up even more, and then sell it in the future. So this one is pretty interesting. We have one of the first real buyouts of a Lost Art promotion card, with Monster Reborn reaching a massive $47 price point on TCG Player. So just a reminder, these Lost Art promotion cards are given out for free by stores when you spend $30 or more on Yu-Gi-Oh product at your local OTS store. I think this is interesting because a lot of people kind of hoarded cards like this, thinking that they would go up over time, maybe like 5 years into the future. Well, Monster Reborn's Lost Art version came out about 2 years ago, and it is starting to go up, though we haven't seen price jumps like this in the other cards like the Head of Exodia or Skill Drain or anything like that. Now, personally, I have a few copies of each. I typically would always buy product like as often as I can from my local OTS store, and then others as well. I think that these are kind of like a 50-50, to be completely honest. I definitely don't think that they're as guaranteed to make you money in the long run as people would have you believe. Now, on one hand, if they never get reprinted, right, I think they will eventually be worth quite a bit, definitely more than what their market prices are now. However, I do think you have to very strongly consider the possibility there's a solid chance that we could see re-waves of these Lost Art promotional cards as ways to support OTS stores to help promote product sales, especially if these prices get out of hand on the secondary market. Also, theoretically, there are quite a few quantities of each of these cards that are sitting in people's binders or tins or something like that at home, and when the prices start to hit a certain point, we could definitely see those re-enter the market and drag prices back down. So really, it is kind of up to you, and if you think they're worth holding onto for the long run, based on what you were able to pick them up for. Alright, so now we're on to Coral Dragon really briefly here, a card that has gotten a little bit of attention this format. So this is a level 6 Synchro Tuner monster that has a Raigeki break sort of effect, though it isn't a spell speed 2. Also, if it leaves the field either for a link or synchro summon, you get to draw a card. It's a really useful toolbox option to have access to. Now, importantly, in Adamancipators, you can use this and Doki Doki to make Adamancipator Risen Dragite as well, and because Coral Dragon's a water, you get Dragite's negate effect as well. Of course, I don't think that this is necessarily like the most important card to have in the deck by any means, but it's definitely a potentially very useful one. It could also be used in other Synchron strategies as well, though I haven't really seen too many of those around. Now, because of this, secret rares have jumped up to around the $10 to $12 mark, which is kind of weird because this is roughly where it was at before the card got reprinted at all. There is an ultra rare print as well, which is only around 50 cents or so, but it is going to be a little bit difficult to find someone, say at your locals, who has an extra one, because it did come from the legendary Dragon Dex box where you had to spend like $30 or $40 on the entire box, and they probably don't want to get rid of a card that's so cheap. Ultimately, I do think that you are just better off buying the ultra rare copy online if you really want to play this card. Alright, so this one was confusing to me for a number of different reasons here. So we actually saw Thunder King Rio get mostly bought out off of TCG Player. However, it's actually the secret rare rather than the ulti that was bought out. Now, for one, Thunder King Rio isn't seeing any meta play at the moment. Don't get me wrong, I love this card. I used to side it like all the time back in like Duelist Alliance format. I guess that it might be used in some Rogue, Inspector, Border, Stun type of deck like that, but other than that, I don't really see it being relevant at all, so I don't understand why it was targeted in the first place. Secondly, I don't know why it was the secret rare that was chosen over the ultimate rare, especially taking into consideration the fanbase's general obsession with secret rares and how that is almost always targeted because it's considered the highest rarity, unless you have like a ghost or a starlight rare version. But yeah, the secret rare is now around $75 lowest on TCG Player, but the ultimate rare you can still grab for only like $67, a price discrepancy that doesn't really make any sense to me at all. I guess maybe some people prefer the secret rares, but that doesn't really explain much. Like, the only thing that I can think of here is like with the Vanity's Fiend buyout we saw last week, maybe someone made a mistake and thought they were buying out the highest rarity without realizing that there was a higher rarity target available, which in all honesty would be pretty hilarious. Next up is the Phantom Knights of Shade Brigandine, which is a card that I've actually had my eye on for a little while now. Now, I believe that this card is being looked at because it is a potentially key extender in various decks. So for one, you can use it in Trap Tricks to make a rank 4 monster, as well as proc the effect of Sarah when you're going first. At the same time, it is a warrior that you're summoning out, so in those various warrior toolbox decks that go into Isolde, such as the Flame Noble Knight deck that's coming up later this year, it can be a free extender there as well. Now, the card does only have 2 printings, and the card's gold rare version is actually its only holo print, which is now sitting at $15 lowest on TCG Player at the moment. This is kind of insane because it was only like a $5 card at most for the longest time when it was seeing play before. Now, it did also get a common reprint, which is still only around $3 a piece, not bad at all. If you don't have it, I would recommend grabbing the common over the gold rare if you do need it, because I think there's a really solid chance that we'll see it get a holo upgrade within the next half a year or so. Alright guys, the last card that I want to talk about here is something that hasn't spiked up in price yet, but I want to talk about it just because I think it's a card that you should be picking up now before it does jump. So Heritage of the Chalice is a low-key insane card for Noble Knights, allowing you to search for any Noble Knight monster or Noble Arms spell from your deck or graveyard and add it to your hand, as well as potentially add itself back from your graveyard to your hand. We're currently seeing the Flame Noble Knight deck do fairly well in the OCG as one of the top meta decks in their format, and I think there's absolutely a chance that we could see the deck do similarly well here in the TCG when we get all of the cards later on this year. Heritage of the Chalice is a card that the deck does run at 3, so I think that at some point there will be a scramble to pick it up. It's relatively cheap now, only around $2 for the Prismatic Secret Rare or 50 cents for the Ultra Rare version. This is definitely one of those penny stock type cards that I think you should do your best to pick up now before they do jump up to around the $5 mark in just a few months. Alright guys, that is it for today's episode. I know, unfortunately, we are back to this trend of seeing some really weird, out-of-place buyouts that don't really make any sense, but we're Yu-Gi-Oh players, right? We don't need to listen to logic. Why save and invest money in other things when we could be spending it on Yu-Gi-Oh? At least that's what me and my friends say to each other. Anyways guys, if you did enjoy today's episode, please do be sure to hit that thumbs up button for me. It does help out a ton. And of course, if I didn't cover something in today's episode, or if you guys have your own thoughts and opinions on the market, or maybe I missed something, please do leave a comment down in the comment section below so that I can potentially cover it in a future episode and keep all of you guys as informed as possible. And of course, if you guys haven't already, please do consider subscribing to the channel for all of the latest and greatest content from Tombox and myself. And yeah, so until next time guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.